Hi, and namaste to my Hindu friends. My name is Henry Jolicoeur, and this is part 10 on my series of expose of Tulsi Gabbard, Lies and Deceit. I've already mentioned in my other videos that I think that Tulsi Gabbard is completely brainwashed when it comes to her belief that her guru, Chris Butler, that you see here, is the pure representative of God on earth. She was born and raised in the cult called the Science of Identity. Both her parents, Carol and Mike Gabbard, have been in that cult for a very long time. They have raised all of their children to believe that Chris Butler is the pure representative of God on earth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, when you want to be President of the United States of America, it is a very dangerous belief to have planted in your heart, in your subconscious mind. Today, I would like you to listen to the testimonial of Rama Ranson, who also was born and raised in the cult Science of Identity, that was born and raised worshiping Chris Butler, but fortunately, when he was a teenager, he decided to walk away from the cult, to deprogram his mind from worshiping Chris Butler as the representative of God on earth. And the result was that he was completely rejected from his family. Rama Ranson was also mentioned in the lawsuit that I've received 2 years ago by one member of the Science of Identity, the adopted son of Chris Butler. His name is SIDDHA Bellord, that you see here. He took legal action against me and against Rama Ranson, and you can find out why by listening to a video, which I will put the link under this video. I've been asked if I was upset at SIDDHA Bellord for suing me and suing Rama Ranson, and the answer is no. I am not upset because I understand that SIDDHA Bellord is also deeply brainwashed by this cult. SIDDHA Bellord was taken away from his biological father when he was only a small child. His mother married Chris Butler, and he was raised with hundreds of people bowing down, worshiping his adopted father. He was expected to give an example of what it is to be a good devotee of Chris Butler. When he was a teenager, he was shipped to the school in Philippines, where unfortunately he got some disease because it was prohibited for a teenager to experience with sex in that school. So I have a lot of compassion for SIDDHA Bellord, and I hope that as he grows older as an adult, he will finally have the courage to deprogram himself from being an instrument of that cult. I wish the same to Tulsi Gabbard and her husband Abraham. I hope that eventually they will have the courage to break away from the cult and find their own true self without the brainwashing that they have received in the cult science of identity, in the cult where the megalomaniac Chris Butler makes people believe that he is enlightened, that he is self-realized, that he is the only pure representative of the blue god Krishna on earth. I wish that Tulsi Gabbard will have that courage to eventually completely walk away from that cult and be her own person. There's been a story that has been spun around Tulsi Gabbard. Some of her followers do not know the true story of the cult that she was born and raised in. They are only getting the short story of what she has accomplished as an adult without being told of her connection to Chris Butler and his brainwashing cult. So listen and make up your mind. What's really wrong about Chris Butler and his cult?
Well, I'll say one thing is that the cult is a whole lot worse than I ever knew when I was in it. I never knew they were based on international drug trafficking until 1 year ago. And then I found out that a disciple named Patrick Bowler, who we knew as Paramahansa, I've known this man my whole life. This guy was one of the largest drug dealers in the world for some period of time, according to the records of his arrest. This guy paid for my family to go and serve Chris Butler during the height of his drug dealing. So, and during this whole time, my mother would condemn me for, using drugs or touching marijuana, and would condemn me for possibly giving it to some of my other friends when I was young. All the while, her entire cult was based on international drug trafficking, and even when it came out in New Zealand newspapers, she still backed up the drug traffickers in her cult and, condemned me for being a kid in Hawaii.
Yeah, but what do you see wrong in the Chris Butler character himself?
Well, I say it's a very, very dangerous. It's a cult of personality. It's 100% total domination by Chris Butler. His will must be followed, and it's zero critical thinking. Like, you cannot think about it at all. The group will turn on you if you even raise one question. It creates the most disempowered mentality in the members of the cult. They cannot think for themselves, and they obey Chris Butler no matter what he says. They give him all their money. They cut off their own kids for him. They make their kids worship this white man who's like an old crazy sociopath, like a sadist. And the list of his disorders is like as long as you could imagine. Total mindless, brainwashed state of mind that these cult members exist within. And the worst part is putting it onto their children. It's like so messed up. They just destroy lives. They completely destroy kids' lives. Kids never have a hope, man, if you grow up in that. The best you could hope for is that you might have some talent, like you're an artist, and then Chris Butler might send you to school, but you'd be the exception, and you'd be expected to turn around and serve him for free and give away everything, and to have kids yourself and to raise them to worship Chris Butler. Like, the guy is so sick and so disgusting, but so are the people that do this to their kids. So it's, I guess if any of these kids ever see this, I just want you to think about it. I mean, just Google any one thing and just start from there and look into the history of this cult and the history of other cults. You have to study cults as a whole and know how they operate and know how they control you, because you have to break out of this. And Chris Butler's cult is a brainwashing cult. It's a mind control cult, and you will do very well to get yourself free. I can say that much. There's something about Chris Butler, I don't know how he has done it, but he's like an evil genius, that he's so expert in running this cult this way. I mean, the guy has nothing to offer at all. He's not intelligent. He has no wisdom. He's not spiritual. And these people will just do anything for him. I get it, it's almost like playing into these animalistic instincts of people, that we're controllable like sheep under the right conditions. And Chris Butler has maybe studied psychology enough to know exactly how to do this, studied brainwashing and studied mind control. I know I haven't seen even a fraction of the level of sick abuse that's going on to this day within this cult, and everything is compartmentalized and kept away. But personally, I would say it is the one-on-one type of worship that you have of Chris Butler. When I was 7 years old, we flew to Sedona, Arizona to serve him, and we would be brought into his house, and every single one of us would be made to wear a surgical mask in his presence. So it was a young 7-year-old kid in a crowd of like 30 or 40 people, everyone wearing masks except for Chris Butler, who enters the room in his strange white outfit similar to this photo that we just found recently, where he's wearing all white, and it's all this plain clothing with a turtleneck, and it's just like people treat him like he's God, and they hit the floor and they worship him when they see him. If you're in private and you see him, you hit the floor and you worship him.
Hit the floor means to bow down to him.
Yeah, you lay on the floor. You put your head on the floor. Most people would lay like completely flat on the floor. Like either you put your knees and your head to the ground, but most people would just, the most like low to the ground you can get, laying on your face with your arms stretched out towards him. Uh-huh. And you would even do this to his wife, Wailana, who we knew as Vaishnava Dasi, who was, basically considered as holy as Chris Butler, just on the fact that she got married to him, I guess. And so I was a little kid made to like worship these cult leaders, and these people are just like parasites that have nothing to offer, totally evil, tell people they know the truth and that they're the only way you can connect to God. And they've lived like millionaires off the backs of my family and hundreds of families around the whole world, if not thousands of families. Like, this guy operates major operations all around the world, and they're very hardcore, not just in Kailua, but if you get involved with Science of Identity cult in New Zealand and Australia and Canada and the Philippines, in the United States, they have programs where these followers, cult members of Chris Butler, will put you through the same type of abuses that you get when you're around him. They will get you to start giving him your money, and even if you never meet him in person, most of these people have never met him. He hasn't even appeared in public in 10 years, I don't think. He sits in his house and he uses Skype video cameras and letters to talk to people. He uses letters to initiate people. But I will say that I know her family, and I know of her and her dad, and I heard all about them my whole life, especially her dad, who was into politics and being successful from a pretty young age of mine. And his name is Krishna Katha Das. His wife's name is Devahudi Dasi. all their kids were referred to Tulsi, Bhakti, Jai, Jai Gabbard, all these guys. So I knew who they were, and I always knew they were in the Chris Butler cult. But people, the information is out there because Tulsi says she joined when she was a teenager, yet I'm sure Tulsi was born as Tulsi Gabbard. Why was she born with a Hindu name? Why was her brother Bhakti Gabbard born with a Hindu name? Or if these guys were not born with these names, they've been known by these names since they were young kids. And Jai Gabbard, Bhakti Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard. If Tulsi became a Hindu independently of her family when she was a teenager, how come they were all born with Hindu names? And also there's a video where Tulsi Gabbard clearly states that her Guru Dev is SIDDHA Paramahansa. This is directly talking about Chris Butler.
My Guru Dev, Srila SIDDHA Paramahansa.
Video is about 1 year old and it aired in India and is clear as day. That alone is enough evidence anyone should need to know that Tulsi Gabbard is fully a servant of Chris Butler, the cult leader.
Now, because you have been in the cult since birth, like hundreds of other kids that grew up in the science of identity, if someone who is now an adult is thinking that he should go the way of deprogramming, what would you say to a person that is now an adult and is thinking of leaving the cult but has fear of losing his family, fear of punishment by the cult? What would you say to someone to encourage them to leave the cult?
I would say, first of all, get your mind free. Free your mind. You can do that no matter what. No matter what, if you're afraid of losing your family or if you're afraid of retaliation from the cult, you can educate yourself and you can free your mind. And that's the whole battle right there. But once you do that, I know it's the worst thing in the world that these families will disown their own kids like they did to me just for speaking about something that they were raised in that they had no choice in. So I encourage people to come forward and to speak out. And you have a duty to do this. And each person that does will make it easier for the next person. I hope that I've made it a little easier for someone else who might come forward. But we can do this together, and we can break this this hold that Chris Butler has on the families. We can make the families still talk to their kids. But and as far as being afraid physically of say death threats or physical violence from the cult, I say screw them. They're nothing at all. They are nothing. I'm not afraid of them. I've assumed every risk possible to even speak as myself about them. But don't worry, these guys are nothing. They have fear and they control through fear, but they will not show their face to you. They will run and they will pretend like you don't exist. And if they ever try to touch any of us, we'll turn it back on them and we'll blow it up, and it will be known that they attacked on behalf of Chris Butler and the cult. So I don't know, I just encourage everyone to do anything you can. At least get your mind free and think for yourself, and please step up and speak up and give me some support, please.
And if someone needs more help, information, they can reach you on your Facebook page, right?
Absolutely. Rama Ranson, just look me up on Facebook. If you're afraid that the cult is watching your friends list and you're, got family in there, you can just send me a message. They'll never know. And there's, we're trying to build a small community. There's people that are out, and there's people that are sympathetic, and there's people that, cannot go all the way as far as I have, but they're right there in spirit and in their minds. So if you can get that far, and that's great. If you want to say hello to me and let me know, that is awesome.
Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing your experience. I think you're a wonderful young man, and bravo for freeing your mind from
Right
Chris
on, man.
Butler.
And I want to say to you, Henry, like, you're the most awesome guy ever, and I've been watching all your videos, and everything's just great, and you're just an awesome character, and everyone that sees your videos really likes you, so just keep up the good work, and I'm very happy to call you my friend.